Okay, roll call.
Chisel. Neal.
Here.
Olson.
Here.
Luce.
Here.
Zittigrum.
Here.
Hadley.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Is there anyone who wishes to speak on an item that is not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move along. Once again, in October, we do the proclamation for Indigenous Peoples Day. A proclamation relating to Indigenous Peoples Day, declaring the second Monday in October 2023 as Indigenous Peoples Day in the city of Decorah. Whereas the indigenous peoples of the lands that would later become known as Decorah have occupied these lands since time immemorial, and Decorah is built upon the homelands and communities of the indigenous peoples of this region, without whom the building of the city would not be possible. And whereas we value the many contributions made to our community through indigenous peoples' knowledge, labor, technology, science, philosophy, arts, and the deep culture contribution that has substantially shaped the character of Decorah. And whereas the city opposes racism toward indigenous peoples of Decorah or any Iowans of any origin, and honor our nation's indigenous rights, history, and contributions. And whereas Indigenous Peoples Day was first proposed in 1977 by a delegation of Native nations to the United Nations, sponsored in International Conference on Discrimination against Indigenous Populations in the Americas. And whereas the city of Decorah joins a growing number of cities that have recognized the second Monday of October as Indigenous Peoples Day, creating an opportunity to promote appreciation, tolerance, understanding, friendship, and partnerships among Indigenous peoples and all Decorah residents. And whereas the city of Decorah is dedicated to opposing systemic racism towards indigenous people in the United States, which perpetuates high rates of poverty and income inequality, exacerbating disappropriate health, health, education, and social services. And whereas the city of Decorah will observe Indigenous Peoples Day as an opportunity to recognize and celebrate the history, culture, and contributions of Indigenous peoples in our community. And whereas it is fitting for parents and their children, educators, businesses, and other members of the community to join the celebration in an effort to build community and understanding between Indigenous peoples in the community and all other Decorah residents. Now, therefore, I, Lorraine Borowski, Mayor of Decorah, Iowa, do hereby proclaim: 1, the city of Decorah strongly supports the proposition that Indigenous Peoples Day shall be an opportunity to celebrate the cultures and values of the indigenous peoples of our region, our country, and throughout the world. 2, the city of Decorah encourages Decorah Public Schools to include the teaching of indigenous peoples' history. 3, the city of Decorah encourages other businesses, organizations, and public institutions to recognize Indigenous Peoples Day. 4, the mayor of the city of Decorah declares the second Monday in October 2023 as Indigenous Peoples Day in the city of Decorah. Thank you. Consent agenda.
Minutes of the September 18th and September 25th, 2023 meetings, claims, tax abatement at 312 East Street, Dean and Teresa McCabe, new garage, renewal of Class C retail alcohol license with outdoor service, Skyline Lanes LLC, amendment of Class C retail alcohol license with outdoor service, Skyline Lanes LLC, appointment of Brian Erickson to the Tree Board.
Luce would move the consent agenda.
Second.
Moved by Luce, seconded by Olson. Any discussion? Roll call?
Luce.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Chisel.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Hadley.
Aye.
Zittergren.
Aye.
Conduct public hearing on the plans, specifications, form of contract, and taking bids for the Decorah 2023 Miller Park Recreation Trail Improvement Projects. I'm going to have Jeremy.
Yeah, thank you. So this project was a collaborative project between our staff and Andy and his team to replace the Miller Park Trail. Those of you that are familiar with the park, trail runs from Bluegrass Drive over to Pleasant Avenue. I think, Andy, it's the first park trail in Decorah. First paved park trail. And it you can tell. So it's in need of replacement, and so this project is to essentially remove and replace that trail. It is going to be in a slightly different location. Yeah, you can see the bid results. We had 3 bidders, which is great. A little bit of a range in the pricing, but ultimately the low bidder was below our estimate, which is a good thing. So yeah, I can provide more background as needed, maybe when we get into item 7.
Okay, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to this item on the agenda? Seeing and hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. Consider a resolution approving the plans, specifications, form of contract, and awarding the Decorah 2023 Miller Recreation Trail Improvement Project. Okay, would you like to, anything else?
Yeah, so just to clarify, we bid a couple alternates, so I just want to make sure we're clear on what exactly we are recommending. So we did bid, the first part of the trail is going to be concrete, just due to some of the constructability challenges. And then we bid the majority of the trail either as concrete or asphalt. So alternate 1 was concrete, and alternate 2 was asphalt. And so that's the main difference there. And then alternate 3 were some items that, given some of our uncertainty with how the bids were going to turn out, we separated some items that we could have self-performed had the numbers been maybe a little bit higher. So given the bids we received, our recommendation is alternate 1 and the base bid, which would be the entire trail in concrete, as well as alternate 3, which are those items. We felt the pricing was such that, to be honest, I don't know that we can do it for that number. So our recommendation is to award base bid plus alternate number 1 and alternate number 3.
And then please give that amount.
So base bid plus alternate number 1 is $108,140.90, and then alternate number 3 would be $4,970.60.
Hadley will make a motion to accept the resolution approving plans and awarding to Skyline Construction the base alternate 1 and alternate 3 in the amount of $113,111.50.
Second.
Motion made by Hadley, seconded by Olson. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. Roll call?
Hadley.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Luce.
Aye.
Zittergren.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Chisel.
Motion carried. Consider an ordinance to amend the official zoning map of the city of Decorah, Iowa, set forth in Title 17, Section 17.60.020 of the Municipal Code of the city of Decorah to change the zoning classification from A1 agricultural to C1 highway commercial district for a parcel of real estate owned by Decorah Jobs Incorporated. This is the second reading of this.
Carrie, have we had any input from the
No
public?
feedback, no.
Okay.
No. So this would be the Arvella property in the Decorah Business Park that they want to rezone from A1 Agriculture District to C1 Highway Commercial District because of prospective business that is interested in developing the property.
Luce would move approval of the second reading.
Second.
Motion made by Luz, seconded by Neal, for approving the second reading. Have you had any correspondence at all?
No.
Okay. Okay. Consider,
We read a vote?
oh,
Ready for roll call?
do I have to do that? I'm excited here. Okay, roll call.
Luce,
Aye.
Neal. Aye. Chisel,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Zittergren,
Aye.
Hadley.
Aye.
Mayor, I would move to waive the third reading and adopt.
Second.
Motion made by Luz to waive the third reading and adopt, seconded by Zittergren. Any discussion? Roll call.
Luce,
Aye.
Zittergren,
Aye.
Hadley,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Neal. Aye. Chisel.
Okay. Consider resolution proposing sale of city-owned real property in the vicinity of Decorah High School softball diamond and the corner of Claiborne Drive and Ively Street, and setting a date for a public hearing for the sale of said city-owned. I'm going to ask John to give background on this, please.
Okay, before the city may dispose of city-owned real estate, they have to set a public hearing, and as part of this resolution, setting the public hearing, the city is required to set forth the proposed terms of that conveyance. So in Dropbox, you have a copy of the offer to buy real estate and acceptance that was submitted by the Decorah Community School District. Purchase price is $1,975,000. The full terms are in the offer in Dropbox, but I'll give a summary here. The offer to purchase the city's real estate is what's sometimes referred to as that island between Claiborne and Hively, where the city softball field and tennis court is. All the city's property on the west side of that island, except there's kind of been a last-minute change where there's a small triangle that the city may retain, and I can talk a little bit more, or Jeremy can later. And then also the high school softball diamond out here, which is owned by the city, and left field of the high school baseball diamond. Subject to the city retaining utility easements that run through all that real estate. There's an access easement we will need to the south of the high school softball diamond to a, I don't know if it's a well house or that's out there. And then there's some surveying that's in the process of getting done. The school will reimburse the city for the surveying costs. And then it's also subject to an agreement that there's an agreement entered into at the next meeting to allow the city to continue to use the school's athletic facilities, gymnasiums, playgrounds, athletic fields, et cetera, that the city currently uses for 50 years. As you know, we've negotiated, we tried to get it in perpetuity. There were some last minute negotiations about that, and the last best offer, I would say, was 50 years. And that would also include continued use of the facilities the city is conveying to the school. We would get to use that as well as part of that, subject to the school's activities would take priority over school activities. Another thing, the school, as part of their building project, may need to relocate some city utilities. This agreement will lock in place utility easements, but part of that agreement will be that if the school wants to relocate utilities, it's subject to city approval and at the school's cost. Closing is to be on or before November 3rd. Oh, and one other thing that kind of came up late on Friday was there is a need for a sidewalk easement north of the tennis court. It was a little late to get that in the offer, but talking to the school's council, it seemed like that it was in everybody's best interest to get that in place, so I don't anticipate any issue with that. And I've already shared kind of our standard sidewalk easement agreement. I didn't get any major blowback about it, so.
And then the public hearing would be on October 16th?
Correct. October 16th would be the public hearing.
Lewis would move, we have a set a day for October 16th for the public hearing.
Neil second.
Motion made by Luce and seconded by Neil to set October 16th as the time for the public hearing.
And again, this resolution is also proposing the terms of that conveyance
Yes.
in addition to setting the public hearing.
Any discussion?
Well, so this, anytime the city disposes of real estate, there's two steps to it. The resolution proposing the terms of the conveyance and setting the public hearing. Then there's the public hearing, and then followed by the resolution approving the terms of the conveyance. And I always encourage the council, now's the time for any substantive discussion about the terms of this agreement, because if it's going to change it all, well, one, the school's already made an offer, but two, we've got to publish notice of what these terms are, and the public should know what those terms are going to be that the council is going to consider.
Are those things that you just talked about, John, like the sidewalk and things like that, will they be in this?
No, they're kind of, I call it ancillary. We just talking about through it that there was a little bit of uncertainty, but assuming that the agreement is entered into, it's in everybody's interest to work that out. The triangle, the little triangle piece, Jeremy might be able to explain a little bit more about, just so you have an understanding. It's not a very big piece, but.
Yeah, if you can see my screen here, there's a little, this is just a draft of the survey information of what we call the south property so far. You can see a couple of the things that came up. John mentioned sidewalks. The sidewalks are actually outside of the right-of-way now. So we'd either need to have an easement or adjust that right-of-way line up here on the north side. But based on the survey information, this parcel actually extends almost to the back of the curb, if not even into the street. And so that triangle that we're proposing to maintain would be, actually I might have it there.
Okay.
In the southwest corner here at the intersection of Claiborne and Hively. So we have some flexibility for that intersection and maintain essentially some right-of-way there.
And since we said the agreement was subject to the surveying, we felt that could be worked out. Both parties will have to basically approve that survey before it's recorded.
Jeremy, I probably should have asked this. I know it's not part of the legal language either, but how many acres in total does this represent approximately?
So,
I mean, I know it's 3 parcels, and maybe I should have emailed you that question. So you had some
no,
time
so this one is 2.85, but that does include the triangle. So 2.75 roughly.
Yeah, thanks.
That's this south one here. Do you want the north one too, or?
Yeah.
3.89. Now this does not have the easements shown. We do have, as was mentioned, a well house right here, and then some water mains that we would need to maintain easement for, as well as setback from the toe of the slope of the levee.
So 8 or 9 acres, but we're reserving easements in there. Okay.
Correct.
Thanks. Well, I'm going to speak in favor of approving the resolution and setting the public hearing with the terms as they are here. These terms represent a great deal of good faith negotiation and hard work on the part of community stakeholders and elected officials. The school board's meeting this morning, which I watched with interest, demonstrated their efforts to come to the table in a spirit of doing what's best for our community, in a spirit of doing what's best for our community's children especially. This is work that's long overdue, and I'm really proud that we've gotten this far, and I look forward to seeing it across the finish line.
Anything else?
I still believe they should be tied to the bond referendum for a new school, and if it doesn't pass and a new location is picked out, then,
I
you know,
understand,
we'll stay where we are.
I understand. Okay, roll call.
Luce,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Chisel,
No.
Olson,
Aye.
Hadley,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Zittergren.
Aye.
Motion carried. I'm totally excited about the positivity that has come forth. Granted that we have a few more pieces to put together, and I am excited to be able to work towards that, so that that school can be, once again, have the air conditioning that it has and whatever is needed. So I appreciate the work of both council and school board in working with it, but just to know that we will be having the public hearing on October 16th, so we can vote on November 3rd. Thank you.
Mayor, are you okay if I make a comment?
Sure.
Okay. I was going to save all my like woohoos till it's done, but I do want to say, because I know that this will hit the news soon. I think we've been working on this project for 18 years, and there's a lot of history and a lot of fact-finding that went on for 18 years. And I know that everyone's impulse will be, but what about, and what about, and what about, and what about? And I strongly encourage public who are interested to contact school board members who have been involved in it for a while. I was involved in it for a while, but contact people who have been working on this project for 18 years before assuming that this is some sort of rash, jumped into decision. I'm very proud of the work that's been done in the last 2 months, but it was built off the shoulders of blood, sweat, and tears for people for the last 18 years. So I know that issues like this can all of a sudden jump to being very divisive in our community, and I hope that doesn't happen, and I hope that people come to the public hearing informed, but then bring your questions as well. So.
Thanks. And then, once again, that public hearing will be on October 16th. Consider a resolution for the installation of stop signs at the intersections of Broadway Street and Winnebago. Jeremy, do you want to give some background on that?
Yeah, thank you. So this is a request that's actually received a couple of requests for installing permanent stop signs. So this is where we just recently completed the bump outs at the intersection of Broadway and Winnebago. And so to better facilitate turning traffic through that, we actually removed the temporary standard from the middle of the street and put two essentially in place of where permanent stop signs would go. Those have been in place, I think, for several weeks and haven't moved. We've had a little bit of a trial period, and again, received several positive comments on that. So we wanted to bring this before council to potentially make those permanent. With the bump outs there, it makes it easier to install them because they're easier to see as opposed to where we had it before. The resolution says 4 stop signs. It'd actually be 2 because we already have one for Winnebago, and it's a one-way, so there's no stop as you're southbound. So
I know that was one of the concerns, even like for bus drivers, making that corner going around. And then I know when I talked to you about it, you did comment that you thought that would ease up some of the space for the bus going towards the school.
yeah, that was a concern, I think, for the entire project. And actually, 2-3 years ago, we actually did a trial run when we were considering this and painted the bump out, left the stop sign standard in the middle, and drove a bus through it. Jim Samuelson and actually Mark Lane at the time helped us do a trial run. So we know that it's feasible to work a bus through here, but I think this would just make it a little bit easier. And from our perspective, it would work fine. From time to time, I know the stop signs are out there a lot, but traffic does move pretty quick through this area, and it's a high area of pedestrian crossing. So
Okay. Also, I'm looking for a resolution?
I move the resolution.
Just a minute. How about if we make a, you've made the first? Steve Zedergrun made a resolution, and
Second.
Kirsten Olson seconded. Now discussion?
So I'm not in favor of the stop signs. Sorry, Jeremy. One, I think that, I do agree that during the school hour, it is a high pedestrian area. But the rest of the week, it is not. And there's already a four-way stop at the fairway there that slows down traffic. And I do think that it is a place where traffic can go to get from one side to the other side of town without hitting water or main. And I don't, yes, it would slow down traffic, but I also think that we have speed limits to do that as well. And I guess I wouldn't want to see, Main Street is very stop sign centric, right? There's a stop sign pretty much every other corner on Main. I don't really want to see that happening to Broadway. And I think that the rollouts of the stop sign during those high critical times do the job of what's needed.
I guess I see a real need for stop signs there. I welcome the idea that you guys have come up with in reference to that. Broadway is such a wide street coming down through there, and you're coming down a hill, so I think it helps to slow that traffic coming down through the hill. And there is a lot of pedestrian traffic through that entire area, coming from the library, the church, the schools, whatnot. So I think it's a good idea.
I do too. I think as a school bus driver, I go through that intersection several times a day. The rollout signs, well, they have worked, for a number of years. There are many days in the winter and in the fall and spring when it's windy, when the signs get blown over and they're missing, or they get forgotten to be put out or put back in. I think just having a permanent sign there, or permanent signs there, because the road is so narrow too, to get around the rollout would be a little more difficult. So I think signs are fine and would work well.
I think that putting the stop signs in kind of finishes that project of pedestrian safety. People look for stop signs in traditional places. We know that the stop sign in the middle encumbered turn radius. I think this is a good solution, especially given the fact that we are proposing and recently actioned the corridor, moving a safety corridor to facilitate traffic from that school complex to the high school complex. And, as the visioning of, well, anyway, we could go on, but I support it.
I just got one question for Jeremy. Will this eliminate the portable sign then at Court and Broadway? Or are we gonna have
So
five
that is not
straight
ours.
four-ways?
Yeah.
That is not ours. That is, as far as I'm aware, only placed out on Sundays. That one is not a city or a school. stop sign.
Right, I think that's put out on Sundays.
Is it Sundays only?
Right,
Sundays
that's,
only, I think the Methodist Church puts that out on Sundays only.
right, it's only out on Sundays.
Okay, I mean, it used to be put out for school because the kids would go up that way and down Court Street to the high school.
Yeah, it's not a standard we provide for
Okay.
placed out. If it's got wheels on it, it's not ours.
And Randy, that was really the concept of putting those bump outs in, that would be the corridor to the school, because we have the arcade access through through Monterey, whatever they are now. Community First.
I
Yeah,
think,
I'm in favor of the stop signs as well. I, bike with my kid to middle school there a lot of days. I sometimes drive that street also. It's nice to zip across town without too many stops when you're behind the wheel of a car. But it also takes 3 seconds to stop and then go again if there's not traffic. And it helpfully, especially if you're behind the wheel of a car, reminds you that it's not just a road for people driving a vehicle. It's a road for people walking or riding bikes as well. Having a stop sign there, I've noticed this at other stop signs around town. Drivers will be driving this way, and then they come up to a stop sign, and then all of a sudden they survey their surroundings again. We have a problem with people texting and driving and looking at their phones and driving in this town. Unfortunately, not everyone follows the laws all the time. We can have a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit, but we also have to engineer roads that encourage safe driving. And this is, I think, a good recommendation that will encourage safer, better driving practices for people behind the wheels so that people who aren't can be just as safe as the people who are behind the wheels are.
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call?
I have one, I think I have something to say. I'm trying to figure out how to say it without getting my head chopped off.
Is it different than the other statement?
Well, I do think, yeah. I mean, I sometimes I think that we can stop sign our community to death, and the whole idea of zipping along, you're not zipping along, you're flowing, right? There is such a thing as traffic flow. And to keep breaking up streets with stop signs when they're not needed reduces traffic flow. You know, you get more cars stopped, you get more idling. I mean, there's a whole lot of things, and I understand this intersection, obviously. I go through it every day. I just don't see it being a high traffic intersection, except at key times when you're right, school's in session, when we do want that corridor there. So I know it's a losing issue, and battling it is not worth it, but I do think that there is a point of which we slow traffic down so much that we just wind up pissing people off.
After I use that intersection all the time too, and I remember too, when I was actually working at the library corner, you know, there's traffic that goes down there all the time, and the speed with which they come from up above down surpasses what is safe if there's any kids walking. Maybe they have a class or something that's going through too. So I guess I understand what you're saying about putting stop signs in, but I think this is one that would be beneficial in the long run. Okay, roll call?
Zittigern,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Luce,
Aye.
Neal,
No.
Chisel,
People aren't gonna believe this, no.
Johnson,
Aye. Aye.
I guess we'll go for a beer afterwards.
Hadley.
Aye.
Okay, motion carried in consensus, and one part of this desk was noted. So, thank you very much. Okay, consider the installation of an accessible parking stall on Winnebago Street. Jeremy, we're back to you again.
Yeah, we're gonna have a theme here, I think, the next couple items. So this is somewhat related in terms of making this intersection a little bit easier to navigate for school buses in particular. There is actually I might bring up a map here. So there is one parking stall in front of 302 Winnebago that sometimes has a vehicle parked in it to be right actually here.
That's Farm Bureau, correct?
No, this is on the south side of the intersection, Decorah Lutheran right here. So this is the intersection we just talked about.
Mertz, okay.
So it'd be this stall, if you can see that, on the west side of 302. And so, again, based on some requests, and to be clear, this is just a discussion, this would require a resolution if it were to move forward, but wanted to bring it in front of council for some feedback on making this an accessible or a handicap stall that would provide another stall there adjacent to the church, but also maybe be less utilized during most of the day. That would make it easier to, again, work through that intersection for buses, larger vehicles.
Just my one question, if I'm looking at this correctly, it's the one that's right below where the jail is?
Let me zoom out here.
Oh, I see. Oh, you know what? I'm on the other side. I understand. That's a house. Okay.
The map is upside down.
Yeah. I didn't turn my head, so.
Oh yeah, there's a map too, I think. Here we go.
I understand now.
I think the write-up is wrong here, Jeremy. Instead of northbound Winnebago, I think you want to have southbound Winnebago on there.
Oh, Well, I'll blame Travis since he's not here.
Yeah,
but
no,
I
no,
didn't
that's
write
fine, that's
that.
fine.
Onto southbound Winnebago, correct? Yep.
Right.
Yep,
And that's
all right. I see
the-
the confusion, yeah.
And that's the house where they used to sell blinds and stuff, right?
That I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're not operating a business out of there.
For clarity purposes, you can't turn northbound on Winnebago, it's a one-way street.
That's correct, so let's blame Travis twice.
We will.
He's not listening.
Okay,
Good. Wait, is this recorded?
we'll duly note it to him when he comes back.
Sorry, I did not catch that in the notes, but yes, it'd be as you're turning
I understand
south
now.
onto Winnebago. Again, based on requests we received, instead of eliminating it entirely, the thought was, well, maybe we'll make it accessible first, see how that goes.
I think there's been I think there's been issues there with buses trying to turn, isn't that what part of the problem is?
I think, yes, if there's a car parked essentially here, where this arrow is showing, it can make that turn a little bit tighter. Yes.
Right, I think there was tire tracks that cut across through the mud or whatever before the grass grew up in that spot, and I think that was probably due to bus. Kurt, maybe you can shed some light
It's,
on that.
with the new bump out, it is a little tight, although some of my cohorts don't drive as well as I do. And can't make that corner, but I agree that either eliminating parking at that very close corner or putting in something that's a little more temporary would make some sense. And I'm assuming too that when you put up a stop sign on those corners, that might help move people back a little bit too. I'm not sure exactly where those posts will go, but yeah, it's not impossible to make, but it would be nice not to have cars parked so close to that corner when you're making a right off of the high side.
Well, and adding a handicap spot next to a church, it seems like a common sense idea, just because their main entrance is directly adjacent. Their ADA entrance is adjacent to that spot, so I would be supportive.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good idea too, because you're not eliminating a parking spot necessarily, you're just making a handicap parking spot.
At the same time, I think making it temporary, at least for now, to experiment with it, makes some sense too, because you could also have someone who works in the vicinity who needs that spot, who would be parked there all the time. And
Yeah,
that could be
and
problematic.
that's a great point. So we haven't talked to residents yet. I wanted to start here to see if it was worth doing that. We can certainly obtain feedback. This was just a discussion item. The beauty of this is nothing's permanent here, right? It's paint.
Right.
So we can try it and either eliminate it entirely, go back to a regular spot.
And that's the beauty of putting no action on it, that you can test it out, see if it works.
Well,
and-
the reason for that is I'd like to have some conversations with the adjacent homeowners
Okay,
first,
that
before we
sounds
bring it
good.
for action. I just wanted to get some feedback here. If it was a non-starter, I wouldn't have those conversations.
Okay. Similar in the next one, consider parking restrictions on Franklin Street and Jefferson Street.
So this is a similar item where we're not looking for action, but just feedback. So both of these streets are unusually narrow. So this is Franklin Street, the block we're talking about between Grove and Broadway. It is not physically possible if two cars are parked across from each other to pass a third car through. And so while that doesn't happen often, or hopefully ever, it's possible. And because of the narrowness of the street, even if they're not parked directly across from each other, but maybe kind of staggered in the winter in particular, it's very difficult for our plows to navigate this area. And so this one, along with Jefferson, pretty much the same situation. This is maybe a couple feet wider. But when we look at the very minimums for parking stall widths as well as drive lanes, neither of these meet those minimum standards to pass a vehicle if two have to be parked directly across from each other. So what that means in the winter, even if we don't have a snow emergency, for example, and are plowing snow, we often have to use an entirely separate truck to come back through here. So, again, just a discussion, look for feedback. Have not reached out to anybody yet to talk about what side or the other makes the most sense, but wanted to have a discussion with council on potential here.
So they'd just be one-sided parking streets.
Correct.
Yeah, I guess I probably know this area better than anybody since I was the mail carrier up in that area, drove those streets many, many times. They're both hillsides, so you're going up and down a hill right there in both of them. One's a 1-block area, one's a 2-block area. For clarity's sakes, I guess we should call it Upper Broadway since that's actually the street name rather than Broadway up there, but that's
Yes,
just.
good point, yep.
So, and they are very narrow, and especially like you said, when you get snow on them and things like that, it really narrows it up. So I can see where the need for one-side parking would be very good up there.
Jeremy, can you, just to make sure I understood you correctly, you're saying that if there's cars parked on both sides of the street across from each other, you can't even get a single car through, not that you can't get 2 cars past, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely on Franklin. I mean, you can see the one vehicle there. If there was one parked across from it, you cannot physically fit a single vehicle. Yeah, we're not concerned about two-way traffic,
Yeah.
just one-way taking turns.
Okay, this
Frank-
is a
or-
no-brainer then, I think.
Yeah, Jefferson is close, but still very tight, especially in the winter when you tend to park a little bit farther away from the curb.
I mean, it's not always a failure on residential streets for cars to have to take turns to pass each other for two-way traffic. That's just filtering, and that means that you're probably not overspending on your streets in low-traffic neighborhoods, but that's not the case that we're talking about here. So I think this is a obvious idea.
The other thing that makes it really good too is the fact that I think everybody that lives, there's just a few houses that are actually on those blocks, and they all have off-street parking available to them as well, so.
Yeah, you can see from the aerial, there's certainly a couple cars that park there, but if I'm hearing that it sounds like you'd entertain that, we'll reach out to residents and just get some feedback, and, because, yeah, we don't live there, we want to understand the needs of the area, too.
Yeah, I think it's similar to when we reviewed Day, and gave the neighbors an opportunity to come in and express their opinions and whatnot. It's just the right move. Recognizing the problem and asking for input of the neighborhood, I think, is a solid choice, so that'd be great.
Well, we'll look forward to getting feedback from you after you discuss that with them too.
Okay, thank you.
Award of goal setting, RFP, Carrie.
November 27th, the council will be having a goal-setting session, and so we sent out for an RFP for someone to run that. We received 3 proposals. Upper Explorerland was the lowest estimated cost at $2,100. Midwest Municipal Consulting was the second with $2,950, and MSA was third with $7,250. All proposals include an in-person session on the 27th of November.
What kind of questions or discussion does the council have?
Does Iowa code require us to have like an outside administered goal-setting session every year? I thought it was a helpful exercise last year, and certainly we've been accomplishing a lot of our goals. I'm curious, $2,000 is, not nothing in our budget, and I'm curious about our internal capacity to do this maybe on odd years or something.
That's what we
Yeah, it is.
That's what
This
we
is.
did.
We
Last
did.
Last year wasn't facilitated.
Yeah, last year Travis did it. It was the year before.
Right.
Oh, so I was thinking about 2 years ago then.
Yeah, so it's every other year.
Every
So
other
what
year.
happened last year exactly?
Travis we went through what we did, and then we just
Yeah.
Okay,
crossed off
Yeah.
what we did. This would be
We
a
did.
new goal
so
setting.
the idea I came up with is what we're already doing.
Yeah.
That's terrific. That's
Well-
great.
And I think the idea was, if by doing that, essentially, it's a goal-setting exercise facilitated by somebody else with new council.
Right.
I mean, that's,
We did discuss with being able to have the new council in attendance as well. Okay, so you have 3 options.
I think we should go with the cheap one.
can somebody
That's-
remind me, I'm trying to refresh my mind, because I read it later.
I would,
Was there anything significantly different about Upper Exploring in the Midwest? I thought so, okay.
I would second that one that Steve did. The cheap one.
Motion made by Zittergruen and seconded by Olson to go with the Upper Explorer land at 2,100. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Zittergren.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Chisel. Hadley.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Luce.
Aye.
Motion carried. Discussion on fiscal year 25 street improvement plan. This is not an action requirement, but as you remember, when we talked about it, there were kind of like 3 options that they had. And so I'm going to refer back to Jeremy again.
Thanks for that break.
You're welcome.
So this is what you have in front of you. Hopefully, I don't know if you'll be able to see that. I can zoom in. Also in the Dropbox is a revised 2-year street plan based on discussions that were held last time. And so what we did when we met at the staff level to look at how we can make what we had called, I think, option 2 before, the West Hively large project plan. Doing that next year was really going to be a challenge. And so what we are proposing instead is for the next fiscal year 25, we continue with a couple of those projects we had planned, some of the preventative maintenance, rideability, you can see those there, Quarry Street project, as well as keeping the transfer to debt service among some of the other annual costs. So essentially a little bit lighter year in fiscal 25, allow us to build up not only the lost accounts a little bit, but also the storm sewer, utility, and sidewalks to make it a little bit easier to do this big project in fiscal 26. So I think there's some other good reasons for that approach as well. Might allow us to know what's going on with East Hively, see how that might fit with these improvements. And it gets us in a little better spot as far as reserves go for all the accounts that would be contributing to this project. And talking with Travis, if we were to have the water sewer contribution come from an SRF type of loan affiliated with the wastewater plant, that timing would work out just fine.
Great. That sounds great.
I want to thank Jeremy for looking into this and making that West Main Street, Grove Street to the trailhead possible to get done next year. I think that's such an important part, not just because I live there, but because it is the trailhead area down there, and it takes such a beating with the water running down that street so badly, and it is the connection route between people getting from the trailhead to downtown. So I think it's a very important part for the city to have done.
Okay, very good. I appreciate the adjustment of that. Vacancy on telecommunications utility. I know there's a couple names. I think Chopper's might have consideration, so we'll hope to have something come forth. City manager, department head, and council.
Mayor, just don't mean to interrupt, but do you want to put a end date on that for how long you're going to accept applications?
Looks like.
You want to give them 30?
How about the end of October?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Let's see, Carrie. Nothing? Department heads. Chief Tyne, you want to come up here? It'd be great.
Just wanted to take a few minutes to let everybody know that officers had the responsibility to respond down to 105 Railroad Street on September 27th for a male patient who was down, not breathing. CPR training is not a big deal until it's a big deal. And it was the prompt response of those officers, excellent dispatch, giving the civilian person on scene training advice and tips to perform CPR, but proper chest compressions saved this man's life. So today, he's got time with his family, has been able to undergo surgery, and again is recovering. I would recommend, as we always learn from our experiences, that check your AED batteries. They only save lives if our batteries are working. So I believe an AED on scene, the battery was dead. So you plug in your phone every night, the AED should be just as important. So at least the places that you work, check them monthly to ensure that they will be able to work and perform as necessary. So we will be doing a life-saving award, but it was Trooper Rude, Deputy Peters, Deputy Hook, and Sergeant Van Gundy from the police department that all assisted. So just for your knowledge.
I appreciate you reporting on that. I had heard only the fact that the officers reporting had done an excellent job. It's not often that you get the fact that you have a successful turnaround in that fashion. So
Absolutely.
we'll wish the person good health in the future.
Absolutely.
Okay, anything else over in that arena? Okay. Randy,
I have nothing this evening, Mayor.
Emily?
I just had something I wanted to bring up as I've been campaigning about, which is kind of fun. I don't know if other of you have experienced this, but I think there is a lot of confusion about where people live anymore. And especially not knowing that Randy is no longer Ward 1's representative, and then also really not understanding the boundaries, because honestly the boundaries between Ward 3 and Ward 2 and Ward 1 and Ward 2 are very odd for people to naturally assume where they are. So I had contacted the auditor. They sent out a postcard last year that told everyone what their ward was, but the problem was last year wasn't a city election, and so in that, people weren't really focused on their wards, they were really thinking about their precincts. Now everybody's scrambling to try to figure out what their ward is. I can appreciate that you can get on the website and type in your address and try to figure it out, or call the auditor, but I do think that it would be in the city's interest, and also just for public initiative, that we do something. And whether that is a press release with a new map, whether that is we work with the auditor's office on maybe getting out a postcard so that people know what ward they're in. But I would like to have this discussion about how we let people know their ward, and just a switching of Randy, that Randy no longer represents Ward 1. I mean, because I think, you know, people are actually angry at some of the candidates in Ward 1, like, why are you running against Randy Shizzle? It's like, he's not in Ward 1 anymore. And I just think that we should do something. So I wanted to bring that up to council.
I'm going to refer to Denise in the newspaper, you know, to be able to have something in the newspaper as far as that map is concerned. Also the fact that not all of the council people, you know, are up. So to make it clear who are up and what ward they are in. I would go with Carrie.
And honestly, to me, it's not about voting. It's actually the
No.
people. Well, I mean, it is about voting. It's about people having the opportunity to vote and knowing where they should vote, not any one candidate. It's just that I don't think people know, and I think
No,
that will
I
discourage
understand
voting.
that.
Publishing that map would really be helpful, especially the blown-up one that shows the streets and things like that.
Well, and the fact that simply calling the Carrie and her staff, they can find out. Oh, no, wait, do they call, or do they have to call up to the?
The staff will try to look at it and figure it out for them
Okay.
before they reach out to the county.
Okay, that sounds good. I appreciate you going the extra mile on that. And that would be also getting in contact with DecorahNews.com as well, and getting same information to them.
So then the other idea I wanted to throw out is, I think I'm going to throw it out this term, and then if I'm elected, I'll throw it out again, but just because I think it has to go through 2 councils, actually. I had thought about this very early on, about this idea that all council become at-large members. And in my conversations with Ben Steinis, he did let me know that most cities are all at-large. And I do think that there would be some benefit to Decorah if we considered restructuring so that every council was an at-large seat and not by ward, recognizing that we're a small community where we pretty much represent the whole community. And also I think it would give more opportunity for people who want to run but are limited and constrained by where they live if there's someone serving there. So anyhow, it's something I want to bring up now, and we'll bring up post-election if I'm fortunate enough to still be in the seat. But I did want to have other council members just sort of think about that. Ben Steinis echoed that it would save considerable amount of money if we actually didn't have to deal with the wards for the election process.
Okay, thank you. Kirsten?
Along that same line, keeping the election in mind, we do have one coming up, November 7th, 2023. I know the presidential elections get a lot of attention because there's ads taken out all over the place. You're bombarded on TV constantly with it. Even the midterms get a lot of attention. But this is an off-year election. In the presidential elections, I think we set a record last time with 66% of the people voted. It drops to 48% in the midterms, and I can only imagine what off-year elections get for percentage-wise. So I would like to encourage our fellow citizens to make sure you get out there and vote. Early voting starts October 18th, and the election day is November 7th. I would make the argument that these elections are even more important than those other ones because these are your local leaders that decide what happens on your schools, what happens with the city budget, how your tax dollars get spent here locally, and that probably affects your lives on a day-to-day basis more than what happens in Washington, D.C. and Des Moines. So get out and vote, please.
Thank you. Steve Lewis?
The Iowa League of Cities has a program they've developed to help cities, and it's called Simplicity. And it's a tool cities can use to help citizens come to understand how budgets are done, who can attend a meeting, who can talk at meetings, et cetera. And so I would encourage us to utilize that on our website. They were talking about the storytelling and how it helps. Every city has a dog park. But the one city told the story about Jane and Jim, who met each other scooping poop together at the dog park. And that story made everyone realize, well, we have a dog park, just because it was personalized and it set it above. So if we can utilize stories to help our citizens and this tool of simplicity that the League has developed, I think we should do such.
Thank you. Steve Zedergrun?
I had two things, but now I'm worried that Emily's suggestion that we go to all at large is will mean that I'll have to do my fourth campaign in 4 years. And I just, okay, good. I'm glad to hear it. I was just going to spend the entirety of my time talking about that. So I'll move on to my real things. There's an event at Luther College on October 21st called Designing Trust Through Future Literacy, and it features Anne Beethoven, who is a Norwegian scholar who engages in long-term scholarship. So she thinks about how communities of the present not only shape their communities today, but also what it looks like when they make decisions that affect the world long after they're gone. And we do that even here in this room. We make decisions that will outlive all of our memories unless one of us becomes really famous or something, in terms of land use decisions and other decisions that we make. So I encourage you to consider making it there if you're available. If you want more information, reach out to me and I'll share with you that information. But she engages with this concept that I think is really interesting called cathedral thinking, that when you build something meant to last, it's a true investment in your community in a way that a lot of what we do isn't. It's more short term. So I'm interested in that. I'm going to be there, and I hope I can see some of you all there as well, staff and colleagues. That's the first thing. The second thing, I meant to do this a couple weeks ago, and I forgot to, and I know that a lot of the council members saw this, but I just wanted to make sure that everyone's attention had been drawn to this. Nordic Fest sent out an annual report about a month ago, detailing how many visitors came to the community, how much economic activity was generated, sales tax activity, how much fun people had. It's a handy little infographic, and I encourage you to take a look at it to see what that event and all the hard work of the volunteers and civic leaders and city staff members, in no small part, combined to generate just this incredible celebration of the best that our community is and can be. Really was impressed by that, and I wanted to say thanks so much to the Nordic Fest committee. And the other thing that was sent to the council, but I just wanted to make sure it was put out there, is that Decorah was featured on the fall-winter cover of Travel Iowa. I think that this is somewhere up above Palisades or up above Ice Cave or something. I don't.
Van
Van Penen, like I said. Yeah, Van Penen Park, definitely Van Penen Park. But it's always neat to get some statewide recognition for, gosh, I mean, what an amazing place we live and how fortunate we are and what a great obligation it is to steward this place that we share. So it was neat to see those things out there.
What was the date of that
October 21st at 2 p.m.
Thank you. Ross?
I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who has been involved in the process, for the work that's going on between the city and schools. Such a long time coming. I also was a shareholder with Emily and the school district before being elected to council, and watching something that's unifying for our community is a beautiful thing. This weekend we had a chance to see something else beautiful with the dedication of the new space at Vesterheim. Nothing happens in Decorah that isn't without a little bit of contention and discussion, but I think that that celebration really showed the best of Decorah to people from within and without and outside the community, and I hope that we can continue moving forward in the spirit of unity and not wait another 16 years to do something as grand.
Thank you. Kirk?
Nothing, Mayor.
Just a reminder that this next weekend is Touch a Truck. If you haven't been there, it's a lot of fun, but also it's Luther's homecoming, and the homecoming parade will be going down. So it's once again in Decorah. It's going to be an active weekend. 10:30. Yeah, parade's at 10:30. Touch Truck, I think, is from Randy. Randy. With Touch Truck, does that start at 11? 11 to 1? 11 to 1. Okay. Okay, very much so.
I wanted to wish everyone a joyful new season, autumn. I meant not the Trump trial season. I wasn't thinking of that one. The joy of autumn and watching everything fall is great.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you.